Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 607. Releasing in Australian cinemas this May 15 is Fight to Live, a documentary that delves into the inspiring true story of MMA fighter and bare-knuckle boxing champion Bec Rawlings. We've heard journey from wildchild to champion fighter to survivor and an advocate, domestic violence survivor and advocate, one that has unfortunately become increasingly more relevant with Australia in the grip of a domestic violence national crisis. And joining me now to talk about the documentary is Bec Rawlings and the film's director, Tom Haramis. Tom and Bec, thank you so very much for your time today.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So, Bec, I just want to start with you. We're just talking off air before about how you guys had the premiere at the Gold Coast Film Festival. You could show the film there to like a national audience, especially like up in your hometown up there in Queensland. What's it like? I know you've had pre-jitter nerves before, I'm sure, when you have done fighting and such. You've done that for so many times now, but now a story about yourself in the form of a documentary in a cinema in kind of a packed audience. Is it different kind of jitters and nerves, or was it more kind of a relaxed thing, like the film's out there, people are going to watch it, it's party time?
No, I definitely had more nerves, I think, than some of my fights. Just because I was really put myself out of my comfort zone with this. I showed a really vulnerable side of my life that I've obviously been very vocal about for a long time, but not really into such extreme detail. So I was very nervous, just obviously putting myself out there in that way, in a vulnerable way, because normally, I can kind of control the narrative with my fights and things like that. I put myself out there as the strong fighter, and so I was very nervous about showing the kind of not the softer side, but a more vulnerable side of myself and my life. The nerves definitely, once the first premiere was over with, I kind of was more relaxed and I knew what to expect. But it was also a part of, I hope people show up. I hope it's not just me in that cinema. Sorry, someone just tried to call me then. I had to cancel it. So a little bit of nerves of, I hope people like it, and I hope people show up and it's not just me sitting in that cinema alone.
I think people are really going to enjoy it, because I myself enjoyed it, and I get documentaries and stuff said to me all the time. And what I really enjoyed about the film, Tom, is that we have a sports documentary here, like essentially like like a more kind of primal kind of form of it though. But we're talking about not only an Australian sports star, but a female Australian sports star. We don't get a lot of those in regards to sports documentaries in Australia or even internationally. Was that something that really appealed to you in regards to taking on this movie?
Look, first, no. I mean, it was about Bec. I knew Bec, and when you get to know Bec, and then you start hearing Bec's story, what happened, you're kind of a little bit taken away and blown away and thinking, how can this be? And then that for me really started the conversations back and forward when me and Bec would have what it could look like. And so then I knew, even though I knew she was a star on a global platform, I mean, I just stripped all that away and said, okay, what's the story and what are we trying to deliver and what are we trying to actually get out there? And how can we help people with this message? And that's really how it's, started evolving.
So, Bec, when you and Tom start talking about like making a film like this, so Tom, and you're saying before you're placed in a position of vulnerability. You're talking about stuff that you've touched on before, but in a different, much more intimate context. Is having Tom involved in a production really a big reason why this movie could go ahead? I mean, if it was someone else like you haven't met before, could that even happen, or is Tom being the person that he's being your mate, him being there, is that like a big step forward as to getting this film on screen?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think I would have trusted anyone else, to be honest, and I don't think anyone else would have been able to get those really vulnerable, intimate parts out of me that I discuss in the doco. I think our relationship going into the filming definitely helped, and is the reason why I think the documentary is so good, because I was able to trust him with myself and my story, and I think you need that ultimate trust to really dive into those deep emotions that I I was able to when talking about my experience with domestic violence. So, yeah, I don't see me I don't think I would have been able to do it with any other producer, and I don't even think I would have even accepted that to even start it. Like Tom came to me and said, "You've got a story, people need to hear it," and I took that on because I knew Tom and I trusted him. Whereas I probably, if it was some stranger or someone I didn't really know, I'd be like, "What would you know? How do you even know me?" So yeah, that definitely played a huge part in it being so successful.
So Tom, when you start working with Bec on this film, to me, it's like a really great balancing act in the movie, because we're looking at Bec as the evolution of the fighter in the ring, but also the evolution of the human being as well. And I think that's a really kind of important kind of thing that people need to realize about this film. How do you try to get that balance right between the two parts, though? Or does it come about organically because who Bec is in the ring in her evolution? It is part and parcel of who she is outside the ring as well. And also in regards to the editing context, the pop and the energy that the film has is something also together. I mean, does that also help? Can I bring that balance to both of those facets of Bec's life?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot always happening in Bec's world, and most importantly, I was just thinking about what's that through line message that we were trying to deliver. And one, yes, it was really encompassing around domestic violence and trying to empower people, but then trying to find a parallel story which would show her leading into Mexico and winning the title, world championship. So for me, it was really looking at two stories parallel, and then trying to find a way where I can bridge them and keep propelling the story and kind of, hitting them strings and the notes and coming back and forward to keep the audience engaged. Because if you think about from a domestic violence side of things, if I was just to show you that dialogue itself, I mean, it wouldn't really empower people. It would really make people think, well, where's the message? How can I get help? So for us to really kind of string that was saying there is hope. There is a beacon of hope, and Bec is the voice for that. So that's how we did it. And so that allowed us to then look at the draft when we got the first draft with when the edit came through. I mean, it was probably, the story was there, but it needed work. So I needed to keep flying back into Brisbane and sit in the edit room and really think about how I really wanted to kind of direct the edit and how I wanted to actually, obviously convey to the audience. And I think, we kind of nailed that.
Please support Matt's movie reviews on Patreon. Get access to exclusive content, request movie reviews and top 10 lists, and help support my work. Please click on the Patreon link in the description below. Bec, what did you learn about filmmaking when hanging around a time and working on this movie? Was there things that you didn't think was even like, on the radar, on the board when it comes to putting the movie together? What were your perceptions of filmmaking beforehand and afterwards, now that you've gone through this experience with Tom and your movie is going to be out there soon?
I think the biggest shock was how expensive it is to make movies.
Right.
Even just to have like music played, behind the picture, I did not have any idea how expensive that is, even if it's just something that you've had composed, not, someone's music. So now when I watch movies and I hear really popular song playing in that movie, I'm like, oh my goodness, how much did they pay for that? So that was the biggest shock. Also noise interference. How many times we had to redo takes because a plane flew over, or a truck delivered something across the road, and we're in a house with all this gear and you can barely hear it, but the mics could pick it up. So that was a bit, testing of patience. The first one of the interviews we had in a house that we didn't realize was right under a flight path. So that was a long day of asking questions and trying to get the perfect, audio with these planes flying over every 20 minutes. So yeah, I did learn kind of the technical difficulties that goes into the filming, and but all over it was a great experience. I've been around film crews and done things here and there like Fight Week and stuff like that, but nothing to that kind of perfection. I guess you can have a little bit of noise interference in the UFC's Fight Week preparation stuff, but not in a really good documentary. You've got to have perfect sound. So yeah, it was interesting to be a part of it.
So Tom, kind of similar question to you, but in a reverse context. So Bec's not only going in your world, you're going in her world as well, of the fighter. of the preparation, the training, the fights themselves, all that stuff. What perception did you have of that world beforehand? What changed for you after your hanging out with Bec for such a long time and seeing the work put into it, not only the work put into it, but all the other little things as well that go in there, the travel, the training, everything else as well. Is anything that kind of come to mind when it comes to that stuff, in regards to your perceptions?
Yeah, I know. Look, I mean, I kind of dabbled in the kind of fighting world with other UFC fighters, so I kind of already knew the world. So it wasn't really foreign to me. I kind of knew what I was expecting, what I was going to walk into. But it was, I guess, it was different from from a female perspective as well. Getting into Bec's world and getting to understand Bec's family and the kids and Adrian and just really understanding how that all took place. And I think that really, once you can build that world of what that looked like, then everything else then really flowed through. Really, it wasn't really kind of something that I was going into not knowing what I was doing. I had a clear direction. I was very distinctive of what I was trying to shoot. Had structure around the arc of the whole storyline. So I knew my shot list, and I knew that there was times where there was controlled environments, uncontrolled environments, and then you just got to obviously take that through experience and know how to navigate that through and have a great team around you to kind of help you propel and get the story out there. Because sometimes, you get this one take and you say, nailed it. And sometimes you can't go back and do that again because it's an uncontrolled environment. These things are happening in real life time. So you've got to just kind of go with the flow, and hopefully you'll take enough of that, and that will, you create a perfect kind of formula with the storyline.
Bec, as your career progressed in the ring, the evolution of female combat sports just was getting bigger and bigger and bigger as well. I'm just curious on just what is your take on like where the sport is now compared to where it was before? Because when you started, I don't mean to say this in any type of offensive kind of way, but I imagine some people like mixed martial arts as a whole probably saw it more as a novelty than as an actual serious competitive sport. And now people take it very seriously, especially when it comes to female fights. I think a lot of times when I watch cards, the female fights are much more brutal and entertaining than male fights in a lot of ways. The evolution of the sport in your perception, when do you think it kind of really just started to turn and really started to turn for you as well, and like not only into fighters mindset, but into business mindset as well?
Yeah, it was definitely when Ronda Rousey got signed to the UFC is when it really got serious for the women. We were still, I was competing in Invicta Fighting Championships, which was the all-female promotion. And then Strikeforce had like a few girls in their divisions, but it was never like huge. And it was always like, oh, come talk to me when Dana White lets you in the UFC. So that was when it was going to get serious for the women. And so when Ronda Rousey got signed and opened up that opportunity for us women, I really seen the whole scene change. There was a lot of people started to take us seriously, and we were on the world stage then, so we were getting a lot more eyeballs on us, and that was when we were proving that we could fight and that we do put on not more exciting, but some fights can be way more exciting. We definitely had a chip on our shoulders. We had something to prove, and I think the women in that time went out there and proved it, and it really has. Even I look at the up-and-comers now in the UFC, they are so good. It has evolved so much. Like, my kid's like, oh, Mum, why don't you go back to the UFC? And I'm like, A, my body won't let me, and B, they're a whole different beast now. That like the whole divisions are the quality of fighters now. These kids that have been training since they're 13 and now they're 18 in the UFC, I don't think I could compete with them. They're just different beasts. So it's really cool to see kind of women's MMA evolve, and the athletic women nowadays compared to back then are completely different. And it's really cool to see. And I know I wouldn't want to compete against them in MMA, in boxing or bare knuckle boxing any day, but MMA is a whole different beast. So but it's really cool to see it evolve and how popular it is. Like you said, you prefer sometimes to watch the girls than some of the boys, so that's pretty cool.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you love. Yeah, I mean, I love watching like a good like fight between two like really stellar fighters regardless of sex, but I don't know what it is. Sometimes it just comes down to the girls just put on a better show. You
Yeah.
know, don't know why, but at the end of the day, I think everyone, it just really, it benefits the whole industry as a whole, and the whole kind of like the whole fighting world, most definitely. Tom, I've myself, I go to a boxing gym. I do some boxing, some kickboxing as well. I do it not because of a competition or anything else. I like to do it because A, I like to stay fit.
Yeah.
Because I'm in my 40s now and I got to do something. But B, I think this the psychological benefits of like exercise and such is just really beneficial. And Tom, you've been around, as you said, you've been around fighters before. You've been around like the industry. You've been around the fight game. Is that something that you see as well? That not only is there a physical kind of benefits to like taking on these roles, but there's psychological benefits in a lot of ways as well. Especially, I imagine you might even come across maybe women and men as well. You might are dealing with mental illness. That's a big thing that's happening around
Absolutely.
right now, and in the fighting and training is just a really big thing to really combat that and try to get people I wouldn't say like on a straight and narrow, but at least like a disciplined life in a sort of way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I look, I myself, get in the gym and do boxing myself when I can, but I've got a shoulder injury at the moment. But I love the sport, and I think and that helps when you kind of understand the sport, do the sport a little bit. I mean, it really helps from a directing side of things, but also from a mental stimulation. And like you said, mental illness, that's a real big thing that we're all struggling with at some shape or form. I mean, I've struggled with it in some capacity when we've had COVID and when things have gone
Yeah.
wrong, things are going wrong in the business and the film, and you think, is this film ever going to get made? I mean, all these things that really play a part. And I think, having some sort of fitness in the forefront is really important because it really helps you with the endorphins. It keeps you moving and keeps you going. So I think that, I mean, if anything, I think everyone needs some sort of fitness, whether it's just walking and getting your daily exercise or everything, whatever that is. I mean, get something, do something, keep moving, and just be very. I mean, just have some tough skin. I mean, I know it's hard to say, but I think if we can all open up conversations, have better people around us, I mean, that helps us. Really, take away this whole stigma of everything that's going on within this industry. Yeah.
And I think Beck, something that I really took from your story and how and what you're talking about in the documentary is that a lot of the times it may feel like people who are in the throes of domestic violence might feel like they're in a hopeless situation, but what's important is A, they talk about it, and B, they have to realize their self-worth. And I'm curious for yourself, how much of your training, how much of your time in the gym, how much of the time as a fighter really helped come to the point where you saw not only your self-worth on the outside with these things here, but on the inside in the heart as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I'm saying the self-worth and self-love is, I think if I had that, I wouldn't have found myself in that situation, or I wouldn't have accepted it. But in saying that, I left my ex-husband not for myself, and that's a really scary thought, and scary thing to say, because I don't know if I hadn't have had the kids, if I would have left, if I'd loved myself enough to leave, and whether I'd be here today to tell this story. But with the help of my coaches and my friends, and I was just talking to my my coach's wife, actually, who I became really close with when I was training over in San Diego. And I told her that they were a huge part in me loving myself again, because they helped me open myself up to them and kind of accept their love and encouragement, because for a long time I would question everyone's motives. I didn't trust anyone. And even little things like my coach saying, "Oh, good training session today, Bec." And I'd go, "Oh, thank you." But in my head, I'm like, why does he feel the need to tell me that? Like, was I that bad that he feels sorry for me? Like, did I train like shit and he feels sorry for me? So he's giving me an encouragement. And that's crazy. Like that. And still, like, I was fighting on the world stage in the UFC, and I still had all these doubts and questioning myself and the people around me. And it took a long time for me to get better. And I'm not saying I'm perfect now and I don't have, that negative self-talk, but I can recognize it and I can check it. but it's not. So I want to spread the awareness that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but I don't want people to think it's easy. I don't think anything in life worth having is easy. And especially self-love and self-worth and changing your thought patterns and your inner monologue, I guess, it takes every day. It's a job to try and stay on top of your mental health, but it's worth it. And so, I don't want everyone to think that it's easy and it's just as soon as you get out of a situation like that the trauma's gone and you're not damaged. You are, but you can heal, and it just takes time and good people around and the courage to talk about it and talk to people and open yourself up and be vulnerable, because I think you have to be. You can't just close yourself off and have this strong exterior and not let anyone in or anything get near you. So
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere. Tom, the issue of domestic violence has become ever more relevant now than it has in quite some time. And I know, Bec, you've been talking about this for I don't know, I've done articles all the way back to 2018. That was like 6 years ago, right? And it only seems like now people are starting to really catch on to some of this stuff. So Tom, when you have your screenings and your festival screenings and such, what type of feedback do you get from the audience in regards to the content in the film? Do you get people coming up to you sharing their own experiences? Maybe do you get people coming up to you talking about how important the film is? I'm just really curious about that.
I mean, I've had an overwhelming response, which has been a great positive response from an inspiring and empowering story. I mean, people who I think maybe even watched the doco probably came in with one idea, and then they probably came out with another. Right. So when you tell people, hey, there's a doco about a fighter, your former UFC fighter, it's around domestic violence. And I mean, they're probably looking at, where is this going to go? Right. So, but the end of it, and then the audience is going to, like I said, coming in with one point of view, but then when they exit in the doors, it's like, they're feeling empowered. They're like, it's just a whole different conversation. And I think that is what we wanted, Bec and myself, to actually spread that word and empower people, saying, hey, we are trying to raise awareness, and it's through people such as people who have come in the festivals to become the advocates, because the advocates who actually will create the noise and get people to actually get the eyeballs on seats and get it played a lot more in the cinemas, and then that goes in the streaming platform. So I think it's just important. Yeah, I think it's been a journey.
And Bec, what about yourself? Have you what type of feedback have you gotten for the film since you've had the premiere and such? And are you anticipating when the film comes out next week nationally and it's in cinemas, especially with the conversation how it is now in regards to these issues, that you're going to be asked and maybe even featured more to talk more about this stuff? Is that something you're anticipating going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's definitely going to open up avenues to kind of spread the awareness and my story, and in hopes I can help people. The feedback I've gotten mostly just from friends and family. My family, they were kind of shocked because of the details that I did go into. They were not aware of, and so they were a little bit thrown back by it, because obviously people like my friends and family, they know the story, if you know what I mean, and they know that they know my fight career and everything. So it still kind of shocked them, though. I got that shock value from it, and they were just really impressed with how Tom was able to tell my story and capture their attention, I guess. The way, like you said before, it goes really exciting and then it drags you back to obviously a really dark time, but then it almost gets to the point where, oh my God, this is depressing. I can't listen to this anymore. And then it goes, hang on a minute, and then it takes you over here. And it's really, I think he's done such a great job with telling the story, but not depressing people. And that was my number one thing that I said to Tom. I was like, I don't want people to feel sad. I don't want people to feel sorry. I don't want people's sympathy. I want them to hear it, take something from it, positive from it, inspire them, show them that shit can happen, but it's what you do with shit. And that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and to never give up. And Tom did a really good job of doing that. So, and that was the feedback that I got from a lot of people, with just how they felt emotion, and it wasn't just all sad. It was happiness. It was inspiring. It made them want to go try something new. Wanted them to either go into the gym and, you know, take up boxing, but even just have the balls to try something new and put themselves out there. So, and that's what I really wanted from it.
Well, I think you both did a terrific job here. And for everyone out there listening, May 15, Australian cinemas, Fight to Live. I really highly encourage people to go out, watch this film, talk about this film, spread the word out there, because Bec, I think you're an inspiration, and we are so very proud of you. I'm going to say that on behalf of everyone. We're so very proud of you. Keep up the good fight, really. Keep it up. And Tom, mate, great work here with the documentary as well. And thank you both very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.